He was abandoned by his family, consumed by revenge, and became the strongest mage in history. But after killing the legendary Red Dragon, he learned the heartbreaking truth. She wasn't his enemy, she was just as lonely as he was. Now, fate has given him one chance to rewrite everything. The story begins inside the Roznova family mansion, where Ferda Roznova receives devastating news from his father. His marriage has been arranged with Archduke Valdrova. Every noble knows exactly what that engagement means. Refusing it would mean being disowned, while accepting it would ruin his future. To Ferda, it feels like a death sentence no matter which path he chooses. Despite everything, the only thing he has ever wanted is something incredibly simple. He wants to be accepted by his own family. Life inside the Roznova household has always been miserable. The servants constantly mock him for training despite having no talent. They call him weak, sickly, and completely hopeless. No one ever stands up for him, but he silently endures every insult while continuing to train day after day, hoping his hard work will eventually earn his father's approval. Instead, one of his older brothers arrives only to crush that dream. He ridicules Ferda for even thinking he could become a knight before effortlessly beating him into the ground. As if that were not enough, he calls him nothing more than a filthy outcast who never belonged in the family. Still lying on the ground, Ferda looks toward the mansion and sees his father watching from the window. For a brief moment, he hopes the man will finally acknowledge him. Instead, his father simply turns around and walks away. At that moment, Ferda realizes the painful truth. His family abandoned him long before today. Later that night, he walks into his father's office and calmly announces that he is leaving the Roznova family forever. His father shows absolutely no emotion. Without hesitation, he accepts the decision and orders Ferda to leave immediately. Moments later, Ferda finds himself standing alone outside the mansion gates in the middle of the night. Before closing the gates behind him, his father coldly declares that from this moment forward, he is no longer a member of the Roznova family. Years of humiliation, rejection, and loneliness explode all at once. His body trembles with uncontrollable rage as a crimson magic circle suddenly forms beneath his feet. The overwhelming hatred inside him awakens something no one expected. At 18 years old, Ferda awakens as a mage. Unfortunately, even that achievement is greeted with laughter. Other apprentices mock him for awakening so late, claiming he is too old and too stupid to ever master magic. Yeah, they probably should not have said that. Ignoring every insult, Ferda releases an overwhelming amount of mana that instantly terrifies everyone around him. A blood-red magic circle appears as he discovers something unbelievable. His magic grows stronger through hatred. The more he despises someone, the more powerful his mana becomes. Fueled entirely by his desire for revenge, he unleashes a massive explosion that leaves everyone speechless. Years pass, and Ferda's hatred continues feeding his growth. He eventually reaches the 6th circle of magic, becoming powerful enough to return to the Roznova mansion and settle every score. The servants who spent years humiliating him are forced to destroy themselves through his magic. His 2 older brothers suddenly become consumed by overwhelming hatred for each other. They fight until both of them completely destroy one another. Finally, Ferda stands before the man responsible for everything, his father. The once proud head of the Roznova family is now reduced to begging for mercy. Ferda forces him to witness the complete destruction of the family he valued more than his own son. Watching everything collapse around him, the old man completely loses his sanity. By the time Ferda leaves, the Roznova family has been erased from history. But even after getting everything he wanted, the emptiness inside him refuses to disappear. Soon, countless powerful warriors unite to stop him. They brand him the greatest enemy on the entire continent and dedicate themselves to bringing him down. Instead, every battle only makes him stronger. Ferda eventually reaches the 8th circle of magic, the highest level any human has ever achieved, becoming a legendary archmage. But he still is not satisfied. If he wants absolute power, he must reach the mythical 9th circle, the realm of demigods. Searching through ancient records, he finally discovers the final ingredient needed to complete the ritual: the heart of the Red Dragon, Archduke Valdrova, the same woman whose marriage proposal destroyed his life. Determined to finish everything, Ferda tracks down the legendary dragon and challenges her. Valdrova calmly remarks that fate has quite a twisted sense of humor. The man who was once supposed to marry her has now arrived to kill her. Exhausted from the fierce battle, Ferda tells her to stop resisting and accept her death. Instead of fighting back, the dragon quietly asks why he hates her so much. Ferda explodes with anger. He blames her obsession with finding a human husband for ruining his entire life. If she had never existed, he would never have been abandoned by his family. Valdrova simply listens. After hearing everything, she quietly says she finally understands. That calm response immediately puts Ferda on guard, but before he can react, the dragon raises her own claws. Instead of attacking him, she tears open her own chest. Ferda freezes in complete shock. Realizing she is about to destroy the very heart he desperately needs, he desperately screams for her to stop. He launches a spell toward her, hoping to interrupt her, but the attack only hastens the inevitable. As the dragon collapses, Ferda desperately searches for the heart. Then he sees it, bathed in golden light, perfectly intact. Valdrova gently tells him to take it. Completely confused, Ferda demands to know why she would willingly sacrifice herself. Her answer leaves him speechless. She says that after hearing his story, she realized her existence had only brought him pain. The dragon then remembers her own lonely past. She confesses she has always hated the violent blood flowing through her veins. Every time she took human form, people feared her existence. Even though she longed for a peaceful family, her very presence only spread terror. Her dream was never conquest, it was simply happiness. Believing that everyone suffered because of her, she hopes Ferda can finally find peace through her sacrifice. A single tear falls from the dragon's eye before her enormous body finally collapses forever. For the first time in years, Ferda feels something other than hatred. An unbearable pain fills his chest. Frustrated, he convinces himself that the dragon is simply trying to manipulate his emotions even after death. Pushing those feelings aside, he raises the glowing dragon heart. If he absorbs its power, he will surpass humanity itself and become a true demigod. The moment he consumes it, an enormous explosion engulfs everything. When the light disappears, Ferda finds himself floating alone inside an endless dark void. At first, he assumes it is merely a side effect of the ritual. Then, an overwhelming flood of foreign memories crashes into his mind. A powerful surge of magic strikes him, and he suddenly realizes those memories belong to Valdrova. He experiences her loneliness, her despair, her endless isolation. Compared to the suffering she carried for centuries, his own hatred suddenly feels unbelievably small. Tears begin streaming down his face as he finally understands the truth. What did he actually want? Revenge, power, to become a demigod. The answer is none of them. He remembers himself as a lonely little boy quietly drawing pictures of his family together. All he ever wanted was a family that accepted him, nothing more. Looking back at Valdrova's memories, he realizes she wished for the exact same thing. By the time he finally understands, she is already gone, killed by his own hands. Filled with overwhelming regret, Ferda remembers one final spell available only to a ninth circle mage: Wish Magic. Even believing it is too late, he casts the ultimate spell. Suddenly, someone calls his name. Ferda opens his eyes. He is no longer inside the void. He is standing inside his father's office once again. His father is repeating the exact same words from years ago, announcing that his marriage with Archduke Valdrova has already been decided, and warning him that refusing the engagement will have consequences. Ferda immediately realizes the impossible has happened. He has traveled back in time. This time, he refuses to repeat his greatest mistake. Without the slightest hesitation, Ferda looks directly at his father and firmly declares that he accepts the engagement with Archduke Valdrova. The second son of the Roznova family, Hukan Roznova, is left completely stunned after hearing that Ferda actually accepted the engagement with Archduke Valdrova. Knowing his younger brother's personality, he refuses to believe someone would willingly walk toward what everyone considers certain ruin. When the butler confirms the news, he explains that Ferda has already dismissed all the servants and locked himself inside his room while preparing to leave. Smiling maliciously, Hukan decides to pay his younger brother one last visit, expecting to find him crying in despair. Instead, he kicks the bedroom door open and freezes in disbelief. Rather than breaking down, Ferda is calmly dressing himself for the journey. Without even looking surprised, Ferda questions his brother's manners for barging into his room without knocking. Hukan cannot understand the sudden change. He asks whether Ferda truly understands what accepting the engagement means. Ferda calmly answers that he knows exactly what it means. He is being cast out of the Roznova family. Hukan lets out a mocking laugh and reminds him that being expelled is the least of his worries. He asks if Ferda knows why the position of the Archduke's groom has remained vacant for so long. He then recalls what happened to the previous candidate. The first groom was the Empire's third prince, a man admired for both his intelligence and appearance. He even gave up his claim to the throne to pursue the marriage. Yet only one day after arriving in Valdrova's territory, he was found beaten so badly that he could barely remain alive, his eyes vacant and his spirit completely broken. Hukan sneers, asking if Ferda seriously believes he can survive something that even a prince could not endure. But Ferda's expression never changes. He simply replies that he already knows everything. Seeing he cannot shake his younger brother's resolve, Hukan warns him not to even think about running away. If Ferda disgraces the family by fleeing, Hukan promises he will personally kill him before Valdrova ever gets the chance. Ferda only looks at him with quiet disdain. He tells his older brother to worry more about controlling his own impulses before casually exposing the secret everyone already whispers behind his back. Everyone knows Hukan has been eyeing their eldest brother's wife. That single sentence completely changes Hukan's expression. Enraged, he lunges forward, but Ferda calmly reminds him to stop. After all, his face is far too valuable now. Bruises would only make a poor first impression on his future bride. Completely speechless, Hukan can only watch as Ferda walks past him and heads toward the waiting carriage. Outside the mansion, the old butler begins sobbing into his handkerchief, claiming it was an honor to serve the young master all these years. Ferda almost laughs. He remembers perfectly that this same butler spent years secretly poisoning his meals, making him believe his weak body was natural. Even the servants had worked against him. For a brief moment, he feels the urge to strangle the old man. Instead, he simply places a hand on the butler's shoulder and politely thanks him for all his hard work, adding that it surely could not have been easy pretending to tolerate him for so many years. The butler immediately stiffens, realizing those words carry a hidden meaning. Without saying anything else, Ferda wishes everyone well and quietly boards the carriage. As the journey begins, he notices something strange. His heart feels peaceful, perhaps because he already took revenge on everyone in his previous life. Watching the scenery pass by outside the window, he reflects on the terrifying magic he once relied upon. Hatred had been like a powerful drug. At first, it made him feel invincible. But the more he relied on it, the more it consumed him. Eventually, the rage stopped being a weapon and became a poison that devoured both his mind and soul. Now, for the first time in years, that unbearable hatred is gone. The silence feels comforting instead of empty. Several hours later, the carriage finally reaches its destination. The frightened coachman hurriedly announces that they have arrived before driving away as quickly as possible, praying that the young master somehow survives. A lonely wooden sign marks the beginning of Duke Valdrova's territory, warning outsiders that entry is strictly forbidden. With no one around, Ferda calmly sits on top of his luggage and waits. He considers using simple fourth circle magic in case wild beasts appear, but before he can act, a strong breeze rustles through the forest. Someone is watching him. From between the trees, a young woman dressed as a maid quietly steps forward. She introduces herself as Ruri, a loyal servant of Valdrova, and politely confirms that he is Ferda Roznova before offering to guide him to the castle. As they begin walking, Ferda remembers the truth that most of the continent chooses to ignore. The Arkan Empire prides itself on its military strength, yet its eastern border survives only because of one being, Valdrova. Beyond those lands lies the territory of demons, a region overflowing with monsters no human army could ever stop. It is the feared Red Dragon who single-handedly holds that entire frontier. People constantly spread rumors that she commands armies of monsters and dreams of conquering humanity. But Ferda knows those stories are nothing more than cowardly slander. None of those people would ever dare repeat such lies in front of the dragon herself. As wolves silently appear between the trees, Ruri notices his concern and casually casts a protective spell. She assures him the beasts will never attack while she is nearby. Curious, Ferda asks how much farther the castle is. Ruri calmly replies that it will take another 2 hours on foot. Surprised, he asks how she reached him so quickly. Her answer is delivered so casually that it almost sounds ridiculous. If she were alone and flying, it would only take 10 seconds. That immediately confirms Ferda's suspicion. Ruri is no ordinary maid. She is a dragonkin, naturally blessed with overwhelming physical strength and powerful magic while hiding her horns and tail from humans. Thinking quickly, Ferda jokingly suggests they simply fly the rest of the way. Ruri immediately shuts him down. She has absolutely no intention of carrying him. Well, that idea died fast. With no other choice, the two continue the long hike through the forest in complete silence. By the time they finally reach the massive castle, Ferda is thoroughly exhausted. Ruri knocks on the enormous gate and announces that her master's groom has arrived. The instant Ferda steps closer, he feels an overwhelming pressure pouring out from within the castle. Even without seeing her, he can sense the unimaginable presence of the red dragon. Ruri tells him to wait outside while she delivers the message, but Ferda politely asks if he can speak with Valdrova directly. She glares at him as though he has committed a crime. Someone of his status has no right to stand before her master. A short while later, Ruri returns with Valdrova's response. The Archduke thanks him for making the difficult journey, but has no interest in forcing someone into marriage. He is free to leave. Ferda is genuinely surprised. In his previous life, he would have accepted that offer without thinking twice. But things are different now. He did not come because he was forced. He came because he chose to. Looking directly at Ruri, Ferda firmly declares that he has no intention of turning back and sincerely wishes to continue the engagement. Reluctantly, Ruri returns once again. This time, she carries an enormous sack overflowing with gold coins. She explains that her master is offering him enough wealth to rebuild his life anywhere he wishes. Ferda barely glances at the fortune. Neither power nor money interests him anymore. He calmly extends his hand and reveals the only thing he truly wants. He wishes to become Valdrova's groom. That answer finally pushes Ruri beyond her limit. Letting out a deep sigh, she suddenly explodes with anger. Her fist clenches as she orders him to leave immediately. Ferda notices that her words sound far too emotional to have come from the Archduke herself. She admits he is right. Those are her own feelings. The disguise instantly disappears. Massive horns emerge from her head. Sharp claws replace her fingernails. A powerful reptilian tail swings behind her as an overwhelming green aura erupts around her body. Dragon fear. The crushing pressure slams Ferda into the ground before he can react. Ruri coldly declares that humans are all the same, greedy creatures blinded by ambition. Only then does Ferda finally understand what really happened to the third prince. It was never Valdrova who broke him, it was Ruri. She explains that the prince only sought marriage to control and exploit the dragon for political power. His greed was so obvious that she crushed him before he could get close. Pinning Ferda to the ground with her claws pressed against his chest, she asks whether he truly wishes to suffer the same fate. Despite the crushing pressure, Ferda simply smiles. He raises his hand and makes a sincere promise. He swears that he was not forced into this engagement. He seeks no wealth, no authority, no personal gain. Remembering the sacrifice Valdrova made for him in his previous life, he declares with complete conviction that this time he will stand by her side. He came for one reason alone, to become Valdrova's groom. Still pinned beneath Ruri's claws, Ferda calmly says that if they are going to become husband and wife, then Valdrova should speak to him directly instead of sending messages through a maid. The bold statement nearly makes Ruri lose her temper. Her fist trembles with rage as she accuses him of talking complete nonsense before lunging forward with her claws. But just before the attack lands, she suddenly stops herself. After taking a deep breath, Ruri reluctantly steps back and excuses herself, saying she needs a moment. Inside the castle, she kneels respectfully before the true ruler of the territory, Grand Duchess Valdrova. The legendary red dragon appears in her elegant human form, her long crimson hair and calm demeanor making it hard to believe she is the same monster feared across the continent. Curious, the Duchess asks if the young man truly said all those things. Rory immediately begins criticizing him. She says he is incredibly weak and looked ready to collapse from nothing more than the walk to the castle. In her opinion, he should simply be thrown out. One stern glance from the Duchess is enough to silence her. Awkwardly correcting herself, Rory admits that, despite his frail appearance, Ferda is actually quite handsome. Valdrova quietly reminds her that she never asked about his appearance. Letting out a defeated sigh, Rory finally gives an honest answer. As a dragonkin, she can terrify ordinary humans with ease, yet even after unleashing her full dragon fear, Ferda never showed genuine terror. Because of that, she believes he is one of the few humans capable of looking directly into the Duchess's eyes without breaking. A gentle smile appears on Valdrova's face. Rather than being offended, she seems genuinely pleased. For the first time, she feels there might finally be someone capable of speaking to her like a normal person instead of trembling in fear. Rory cannot understand why her master looks so happy over something so simple, but she quietly accepts the decision. Returning outside, she informs Ferda that the Duchess has officially agreed to continue with the engagement. She then escorts him inside the castle and leads him to the room where he will stay. Ferda is pleasantly surprised. Instead of the gloomy fortress he expected, the castle is spotless and carefully maintained. Curious, he asks who takes care of such a massive place. Rory proudly answers that she does. She is the only servant living in the entire castle besides her master. When Ferda casually asks about the wedding ceremony, she explains that it will be a small and private event held exactly 1 month later inside the dragon's lair. 1 month. Ferda silently memorizes the deadline. Crossing her arms, Rory suddenly becomes serious. No one will simply hand him the right to marry the Duchess. These 30 days are a test. Before the ceremony, he must prove he possesses qualifications worthy of standing beside someone as extraordinary as Valdrova. Ferda asks whether this challenge came from the Duchess herself. Rory shakes her head. It is entirely her own decision. She explains that her master is far too kind and willing to forgive anyone, but she refuses to allow just anybody into Valdrova's life. Even if Ferda was born weak, he must prove he has the potential to become someone worthy of the dragon's trust. Otherwise, she will never acknowledge him as her master's partner. Instead of getting offended, Ferda smiles. Seeing someone so fiercely devoted to protecting Valdrova actually makes him happy. He admires Rory's loyalty, but at the same time, he cannot help wondering where those loyal allies were in his previous life when the dragon faced her final moments completely alone. Accepting the challenge, he jokingly asks if becoming emperor would be enough. Rory coldly replies that she only expects him not to become someone others can look down on. Ferda cannot help smiling again. On the surface, it sounds simple. In reality, proving himself worthy of standing beside the red dragon is a challenge greater than surpassing an emperor. He accepts every condition without hesitation. That calm confidence only makes Rory even more suspicious. She bluntly asks whether he has lost his mind. Ferda calmly assures her that within 1 month, he will show her exactly what he is capable of. Night falls over the castle. Alone in his room, Ferda finally begins thinking about the biggest obstacle before him. Right now, he has no magic. Although he once reached the legendary 9th circle in his previous life, all of that power has vanished. If he wants to keep his promise, he has to start from nothing again. He remembers that the first circle is the most important stage in a mage's life because it determines the entire structure of one's mana. Most mages create a blue circle through calm meditation and stable emotions. His previous power came from the red circle, a path fueled entirely by hatred. It granted overwhelming strength, but it also slowly drove him insane. This time, he refuses to repeat that mistake. Even if rebuilding his power takes longer, he chooses the path of the blue circle. A week passes. Day after day, Ferda meditates in silence, trying to recreate the feeling he once mastered. A faint blue glow finally begins gathering between his hands. Then, it disappears. Another failure. Normally, creating a blue circle takes nearly 3 years. He believed his memories from the future would allow him to skip that process, but reality proves far more difficult. With only 3 weeks remaining before the wedding, time is quickly running out. At that moment, Rory enters the room. She notices that despite all this time passing, Ferda still has nothing to show for his efforts. While calmly eating his meal, he simply replies that things will eventually work out if he keeps trying. Rory can only stare at him in frustration. Even Ferda admits to himself that he needs a different approach. Before he can think further, the entire castle suddenly shakes. A violent tremor echoes through the walls. Surprised, Ferda asks what is happening. Rory calmly explains that the Duchess is currently hunting monsters along the eastern border. Ferda immediately becomes interested. Knowing Valdrova is risking her life to protect the continent, he wants to witness that battle himself. Rory instantly refuses. She explains that ordinary humans cannot withstand witnessing combat on that level. In fact, she mocks him, saying it would only embarrass him before the wedding. Ferda firmly slams his hand onto the table. He refuses to stay behind. If he truly intends to become her partner, then watching her fight is the very least he should do. Seeing his determination, Rory finally gives in. Her dragon wings spread wide before she grabs him and launches into the sky. The flight is so unbelievably fast that it feels more like teleportation than flying. By the time they land, Ferda immediately drops to his knees, barely keeping himself from throwing up. Rory completely ignores his suffering. She tells him to stand up and look ahead. From the top of a massive cliff, Ferda gazes into a dark valley below. An enormous purple mist blankets the battlefield where gigantic monsters roam freely. Then, a blazing red figure bursts through the darkness. The Red Dragon. Valdrova tears across the battlefield like a living natural disaster. 2 colossal serpents charge toward her, but she effortlessly rips through one with her claws before sinking her fangs into its neck. An overwhelming blaze gathers inside her mouth. The entire valley glows crimson. A devastating breath of fire erupts from the dragon, instantly engulfing everything below in a sea of flames. Even from the safety of the cliff, the scorching heat and violent shockwaves slam into Ferda. Then Valdrova roars. The sound alone spreads across the battlefield like a physical force. The overwhelming pressure crushes Ferda's body. Cold sweat pours down his face. His legs give out beneath him as he collapses to his knees, struggling just to breathe. For the first time since returning to the past, he fully understands the terrifying difference between humans and dragons. Rory looks down at him without sympathy. She tells him this is the true form of the woman he wishes to marry. The legendary Red Dragon. Valdrova. Still kneeling on the cliff, Ferda struggles to breathe under the overwhelming pressure of the Red Dragon's presence. Looking down at him, Rory mockingly repeats that it is ridiculous for a mere human to believe he can stand beside a dragon. The terrifying creature fighting below is the very partner he chose for himself, and she wants him to understand exactly what that means. She notices his trembling hand pressed against the ground and assumes he has finally realized the impossible gap between humans and dragons. Rory explains that the blood of a red dragon carries an uncontrollable, destructive instinct. Violence is part of their very existence, and their overwhelming power can never truly coexist with ordinary humans. She believes the engagement is nothing more than a foolish dream that will inevitably end in tragedy. But instead of looking terrified, Ferda smiles. Quietly, he calls the sight before him magnificent. That single word completely catches Rory off guard. Rather than fear, she sees genuine admiration shining in his eyes as he watches Valdrova fight. For a brief moment, Rory is genuinely disturbed, wondering whether this human is simply fearless or completely insane. Later that night, the castle falls silent beneath the moonlight. Lying in bed, Ferda reflects on everything that happened during the hunt. His body still aches from enduring both the dragon's overwhelming aura and her deafening roar. Even Rory looked exhausted after carrying him back at such incredible speed. Considering what he witnessed, he realizes it is almost a miracle that his mind remained intact. As he replays the battle inside his head, one question keeps bothering him. Why did he insist on seeing that fight in the first place? Then the answer suddenly becomes clear. He wanted to see her. Not the terrifying monster everyone feared, but the dragon who silently fought alone on the eastern border, risking everything to protect the people she cared about. Watching her tear through endless monsters, Ferda finally understands the kind of person Valdrova truly is. To him, she resembles a noble knight who willingly chose a lonely path of endless suffering so others could live in peace. A gentle smile appears on his face. Someone as incredible as her agreed to become his future partner. Just thinking about it fills his heart with admiration. Suddenly, crimson mana begins gathering inside his hands. Ferda immediately panics. The red circle, the same dangerous power that consumed him in his previous life. He desperately tries to suppress it, refusing to walk down that cursed path again. But something feels different. Looking closely, he realizes the mana is not responding to hatred. Instead, every time he remembers Valdrova's heroic battle, his mana flows more smoothly. The emotion fueling this power is completely different. It is not revenge, it is not anger. Sitting down to meditate, Ferda carefully focuses on that unfamiliar feeling. He compresses the crimson mana, slowly shaping it into a stable form. The energy spins faster and faster around him as he pours all his concentration into creating a single magic circle. Finally, success. A complete red circle forms. Opening his eyes, Ferda immediately notices the difference. This is not the corrupted magic from his previous life. This time, the red circle was born from a completely different emotion. Smiling with quiet confidence, he vows that he will never repeat the mistakes that once destroyed his life. The next morning, Ruri enters his room as usual. The moment she senses his mana, her jaw nearly hits the floor. She cannot believe he activated his mana circuits overnight. Demanding an explanation, she asks how someone could accomplish something that normally takes years. Ferda simply grins. He tells her that he is far from an ordinary person before asking what she thinks of his progress. Reluctantly, Rory admits he passed her first test. Still, Ferda knows this is only the beginning. He asks if there is anywhere nearby where he can practice his magic. Soon afterward, Rory prepares a simple training field filled with straw targets exactly as he requested. Ferda thanks her for setting everything up so quickly. Confused, Rory asks why he requested such ordinary targets instead of expensive magical equipment. Ferda explains that before increasing his power, he first needs absolute control over his mana. To a dragon, that sounds completely unnecessary. Rory casually remarks that controlling magical energy is as natural as breathing. Ferda cannot help smiling. Those born with overwhelming power could never truly understand how much effort humans must invest to reach the same level. He then asks Rory to watch closely. The blue circle relies on calm emotions and perfect stability. The red circle is completely different. To master it, he must stir his emotions while controlling them at the exact same time. Balancing those opposing forces is the key to unlocking its true potential. During his previous life, it took him an entire year just to extract mana from his hatred. Another full year was spent condensing that mana into a single projectile. Now, thanks to all the experience he carried back through time, he completes the same process in only 2 minutes. Ruri watches in stunned silence. A perfectly stable sphere of crimson mana floats above Ferda's hand. Then another appears, and another. Soon, 3 glowing projectiles hover around him without the slightest sign of instability. With a calm gesture, Ferda points toward the training targets. Fire! The crimson spheres shoot forward like blazing comets, tearing through the air before exploding directly against the targets. The entire training ground erupts. When the smoke clears, every target has been completely destroyed. Looking down at his own hands, Ferda smiles. It seems he has not forgotten how to use magic after all. Ruri says nothing. She simply stares at him, carefully reevaluating everything she thought she knew about this mysterious human. Later, she reports everything to Valdrova. The Duchess listens quietly as Ruri explains that Ferda awakened as a mage far earlier than anyone should have been able to. Curious, Valdrova asks how he performed during the evaluation. Ruri gives an answer she never expected herself. He was perfect. He made no mistakes. That flawless performance is exactly what worries her. In her experience, no ordinary human could possibly be that capable without hiding something. Valdrova cannot help smiling. She finds it amusing that Ruri is praising a human despite trying so hard to distrust him. Although still cautious, the Duchess says she wants to believe the sincerity Ferda has shown so far. Ruri, however, remembers how deeply humans hurt her master in the past. Determined not to let history repeat itself, she vows to uncover Ferda's true intentions before it is too late. Then an idea comes to her. She suggests giving Ferda an important task. Interested, Valdrova asks what kind of task she has in mind. Sometime later, Ferda arrives wearing an elegant crimson noble outfit as his presence is formally announced. Inside the Grand Duchess's great meeting hall, the region's most influential nobles gather after receiving her unexpected summons. Many complain about being called away while monsters continue threatening the eastern border, but the conversation quickly shifts to an even stranger topic. Word has spread that someone actually accepted Valdrova's marriage proposal. The nobles can hardly believe it. Some laugh, calling the groom a complete fool, while others whisper that he is nothing more than a weak young noble who cannot even wield a sword properly, despite coming from the prestigious Roznova family. Sitting confidently at the head of the table, the elderly Count Oliveira dismisses the matter entirely. According to him, the young man will not survive long enough to become anyone's problem. At that moment, the enormous doors swing open. Ferda calmly walks into the hall with perfect composure, followed closely by Ruri. Earlier that day, while quietly reading in the castle library, Ferda had asked why meeting the local lords was necessary. Ruri explained that Valdrova earned the title of Grand Duchess after personally defeating the terrifying Black Dragon Godwin and receiving this land as her reward. Since she now dedicates herself entirely to protecting the eastern frontier from monsters, the responsibility of governing the territory will eventually fall to her future husband. In other words, Valdrova handles every external threat. Ferda must handle everything inside the domain. Realizing this is another test, he gladly accepts. Standing before the gathered nobles, Ferda introduces himself as the Grand Duchess's future companion. Without wasting time on formalities, he looks directly at everyone and asks a simple question: how would they like to be treated by him? The straightforward question immediately changes the atmosphere. The nobles quickly realize this young man is not someone they can intimidate. Count Oliveira responds diplomatically, claiming everyone present has faithfully served the Grand Duchess for years. While they respect her future groom, he reminds Ferda that they pledged loyalty to the Empire long before he was even born. The old count subtly implies that Ferda should be the one showing respect to their experience. Ferda quietly listens until the man finishes speaking. Then he asks again, "Is that truly their final answer?" His calm but piercing gaze immediately places pressure on the room. Even Count Oliveira hesitates before reluctantly admitting that, as the future lord of the territory, Ferda has every right to speak however he wishes. Satisfied, Ferda explains that after the marriage, he has no intention of stripping anyone of their authority. Each noble may continue governing their own lands. One furious lord suddenly slams both hands onto the table. He demands to know whether Ferda is accusing them of exploiting their own people. Ferda calmly apologizes with obvious sarcasm, claiming it was merely an unfortunate choice of words. The noble immediately loses his temper. Pointing directly at Ferda, he mocks him for being abandoned by his own family before proudly announcing that he is a fourth circle mage. Compared to him, Ferda is nothing more than a first circle beginner. Ferda simply nods. A fourth circle mage. Reasonable enough. That casual response only angers the man even further. He begins gathering mana, determined to teach the arrogant newcomer a lesson. Ferda raises one hand to stop him. Instead of refusing, he offers a proposal. If the noble truly wishes to prove his superiority, they should settle the matter with a duel. Moments later, both men stand inside the arena as the surrounding nobles quietly discuss the obvious outcome. After all, a first circle mage defeating someone at the fourth circle sounds completely impossible. Only Ruri watches in complete silence. Standing with his hands casually inside his pockets, Ferda asks his opponent which spell he intends to use. The question immediately offends the man. Smirking arrogantly, he offers Ferda one final chance to surrender before proudly announcing his ultimate technique: fourth circle magic. Magic explosion. Even the spectators become nervous after hearing the name. Many wonder whether Ferda will survive at all. Completely unfazed, Ferda calmly reveals his own spell, Mana Shot. The arena immediately erupts with laughter. Using such a basic spell against advanced fourth circle magic sounds almost suicidal. But Ferda simply smiles. He has no intention of losing. His opponent begins gathering enormous amounts of mana as a massive crimson transmutation circle spreads beneath his feet. Watching carefully, Ferda immediately recognizes the familiar flow of energy. Another red circle user. Without giving his opponent another second, Ferda fires 3 crimson mana shots. The projectiles streak across the arena with unbelievable speed. The fourth circle mage's confident expression instantly disappears. The attacks are far faster than he ever imagined. Ferda calmly announces that the battle is already over. The crimson projectiles slam directly into the glowing magic circle. Not the mage himself, his spell. Each shot strikes one of the circle's weakest structural points with flawless precision. The entire spell collapses before it can even activate. The magical backlash throws the fourth circle mage backward as his own mana shatters around him. The arena falls silent. Breaking an active magic circle is an advanced technique so difficult that even experienced mages struggle to perform it. Yet Ferda dismantled the entire spell with nothing more than 3 simple mana shots. Unable to believe what just happened, the defeated mage collapses onto his knees. His mana has completely dispersed. He no longer has the strength to continue fighting. Ferda slowly walks toward him. Without arrogance or mockery, he quietly asks whether the duel is over. The defeated mage lowers his head. With tears in his eyes, he admits defeat. He confesses that all he has ever wanted was to become stronger. If following Ferda can help him achieve that dream, he is willing to do anything. The surrounding nobles whisper among themselves in complete disbelief. Ruri immediately silences them, warning anyone who questions Ferda's victory to keep their opinions to themselves. The defeated mage respectfully shakes Ferda's hand and introduces himself, Thessalos Walter. He happily remarks that perhaps being exiled from the capital turned out to be the greatest blessing of his life. The moment Ferda hears that name, his expression changes. A forgotten memory suddenly returns. In his previous life, Thessalos Walter was one of the people who helped him the most, his greatest benefactor. Confused, Thessalos asks what Ferda means. Instead of answering, Ferda gently places a finger against the man's forehead. His expression becomes completely emotionless. In a quiet voice, he whispers a single command, Mana Shot. A point-blank blast erupts instantly. The overwhelming impact sends Thessalos flying backward before crashing lifelessly onto the arena floor. The entire hall freezes in horror. Standing above the fallen mage without the slightest expression, Ferda silently thinks that he could not allow Thessalos to live. In his previous life, this very man would one day bring immense sorrow to Valdrova. Ferda calmly walks away from Thessalos's lifeless body without showing the slightest hint of regret. The arena falls into complete silence as every noble present stares at him in horror. Moments ago, they were watching a duel. Now they have witnessed the future groom of the Grand Duchess execute a noble after the battle had already ended. Fear spreads through the crowd. The lords whisper among themselves, calling it a cowardly act, yet not a single one of them dares step forward to challenge him. Looking at their frozen expressions, Ferda casually asks why everyone suddenly seems so tense. He calmly states that Thessalos deserved to die and that allowing him to live would have brought immense suffering to the Grand Duchess. Count Olivera immediately questions how Ferda could possibly know such a thing when today was supposedly the first time they had ever met. Ferda simply smiles. He explains that Valdrova fights every day because she genuinely wants humans to live peacefully. Even as a dragon, she continues risking her life to protect them. Thessalos would one day betray those ideals. Unfortunately, that betrayal belongs to the future, making it impossible for him to prove his reasoning now. The nobles exchange confused looks. To them, the young man just killed someone over a crime that has not even happened yet. Ferda makes it clear that he has no interest in whether they believe him or not. Later, a royal carriage races down the road beneath the orange evening sky. Inside, Ferda leans against his seat while clutching his aching head. He feels completely miserable. Using such a perfectly controlled mana shot emptied nearly all of his magical energy, and the rough ride only makes his nausea even worse. He cannot help thinking how much he misses the magically powered vehicles from his previous life. Watching him suffer, Ruri cannot resist making a sarcastic comment. She congratulates him on killing the Grand Duchess's most loyal noble during their very first official meeting. Surprised, Ferda asks if she is talking about Thessalos. Ruri confirms it. Despite his rough personality, Thessalos had always been fiercely loyal to Valdrova. That answer makes Ferda hesitate. He carefully asks whether the man was truly honorable. Ruri gives a blunt response. He was half honest and half corrupt. Compared to the other nobles, that already made him one of the better ones. Even so, Ferda confidently insists that eliminating him was still the correct decision. Closing his eyes, he begins sorting through memories from his previous life. Looking at the sack containing Thessalos' severed head, he remembers exactly what the man should be doing at this very moment. When they arrive at Thessalos' estate, the chief butler respectfully welcomes the Grand Duchess's representatives. Before the man can finish speaking, Ferda calmly informs him that his master is already dead. Without missing a beat, Ruri tosses the heavy sack into the butler's arms. She casually orders him to hang its contents above the castle gate where everyone can see them. The confused butler opens the sack. The instant he recognizes his master's severed head, panic completely overtakes him. Ignoring the chaos outside, Ferda and Ruri head straight into Thessalos' private chamber. Ruri reminds him that they need solid evidence proving the Lord's corruption. Ferda jokingly points out that she already helped by carrying the head. Ruri immediately threatens to take it back and cancel the engagement altogether. Fortunately for him, the conversation ends when Ferda notices something unusual beneath the bed. A hidden passage. He carefully searches for the mechanism to open it, but after watching him struggle for several moments, Ruri loses her patience. She orders him to move aside. Then she simply punches the floor. The entire wooden floor explodes apart in a single strike, revealing the hidden staircase beneath. Well, sometimes brute force really is the answer. The two descend into the underground passage. As they move deeper into the basement, an unbearable stench of blood and decay fills the air. Covering their noses, they finally reach a hidden laboratory. The horrifying scene before them explains everything. Human and monster corpses are scattered throughout the room. Surgical tools lie beside grotesque experiments where monster organs have been stitched onto living humans. One chained soldier remains trapped among the horrific creations. Ferda immediately realizes what this place is. Thessalos had secretly become a necromancer serving the Demon King, using forbidden magic to perform inhuman experiments. Ruri's anger instantly explodes. She admits that someone committing atrocities like these practically begged to be executed. For the first time, she openly agrees that Ferda's decision was justified. Still, one question continues bothering her. How could he possibly know this hidden laboratory even existed? Ferda ignores the question. Instead, his attention locks onto a stack of research documents. A smile slowly appears across his face. He has found exactly what he came for. The notes describe Thessalos' greatest creation, a method for infinite mana cultivation. According to the research, monsters continuously generate mana throughout their lives. Although their mana is too corrupted to use directly, artificially reproducing that biological process could allow a mage to generate limitless pure mana. Such a discovery would completely shatter every limitation imposed by the traditional magic circle system. The notes also reveal Thessalos' true ambition. He planned to build an undead army, destroy the nobles who exiled him, and eventually rise as an archmage himself. Ferda quietly remembers reading these very documents in his previous life. Back then, he intended to use the same technique to fuel his own revenge. Now, history has placed the forbidden research into his hands once again. Studying it would allow him to regain incredible power far more quickly. Seeing him hesitate, Ruri assumes every ambitious human would naturally keep such priceless knowledge. She even points out that nobody would ever know if he secretly stole it. To her complete surprise, Ferda hands the documents to her. He calmly orders her to destroy every page. Ruri stares at him in disbelief. She cannot understand how any mage could willingly abandon knowledge capable of changing the world. Ferda admits that the research is extraordinary, but he also understands the price attached to it. power gained through hatred would eventually lead him down the exact same path as before. He refuses to let history repeat itself. Looking directly into Rory's eyes, he quietly asks her to burn everything. Without another word, blue dragon flames ignite across her hand. The fire instantly devours every document. Soon, the entire laboratory is engulfed in blue flames as the forbidden research, twisted experiments, and mutilated bodies are all reduced to ashes. Watching the fire spread, Ferda remembers how hatred once became the foundation of all his magic. He survived only by constantly feeding that darkness inside himself. This time, he chooses a different future. Silently watching the last remnants of the laboratory disappear, he feels as though he has finally discarded another piece of his old life. Ruri studies him quietly. She still thinks this human is unpredictable and more than a little crazy. But for the first time, her opinion of him begins to soften. Letting out a quiet sigh, she tells him they should leave before the smell of blood clings to their clothes. After all, it would be inappropriate to arrive at his engagement ceremony with the Grand Duchess smelling like a battlefield. The day of the engagement ceremony finally arrives, and everyone gathers at Archduchess Valdrova's castle. While the preparations are underway, Rory checks on Ferda and asks whether he has finished writing his vows. Ferda confidently assures her that everything is ready. Unlike a typical political marriage, Valdrova has chosen a surprisingly romantic ceremony where both of them will exchange vows personally written for each other. Rory, however, is far from impressed. She points out that the most powerful woman in the entire region is about to hold her engagement ceremony in a place that looks worse than a stable. Ferda simply watches her in silence. Deep down, he can tell Rory is struggling with conflicting emotions. She may not be excited about this engagement herself, but she genuinely wants her master to be happy. Seeing her struggle with those feelings actually makes Ferda feel a little sorry for her. Rory immediately notices his expression and tells him not to stare at her, especially after she spent so much effort preparing and starching his formal clothes. Ferda decides to let her vent. Then another concern crosses his mind. Things have been strangely quiet since the last gathering of the nobles. He wonders what is currently happening along the eastern border. After all, he has not seen a single lord who looks capable of properly managing the front lines. Rory confirms his suspicion. At first, the situation remained under control because the local lords were given authority to govern their territories independently. But without proper supervision, they became obsessed with filling their own pockets. Whenever ordinary citizens complained, the nobles responded with military force. If nothing changes, Rory warns that a massive uprising could break out at any moment. Ferda immediately asks why Valdrova does not simply intervene herself. With a single command from the Archduchess, all those nobles would probably be on their knees begging for forgiveness. Rory gives him a knowing look. She tells him that soon he will understand exactly why her master refuses to interfere. Before explaining anything else, she walks toward the final door and stops. Turning toward Ferda, she politely tells him to take his seat. The engagement ceremony is about to begin. The moment Ferda sits down, an overwhelming pressure washes through the room. Even the air escaping from behind the door feels heavy enough to crush his body. Ferda looks toward the enormous entrance and catches a glimpse of the gigantic dragon form of Archduchess Valdrova waiting on the other side. Despite everything he has experienced, her presence still makes him question whether someone like him truly has the right to stand before her. Rory takes her position with a ceremonial cup in her hands and begins the ancient ritual. The ceremony speaks of mortals and immortals becoming one, bound together by a golden thread that neither the heavens nor the passage of time can sever. The mortal must overcome the unknown and cast away fear. When the ceremonial drink is presented to him, Ferda accepts it without hesitation and drinks it in one gulp. The moment the liquid enters his body, he realizes that it is no ordinary wine. The overwhelming pressure radiating from Valdrova gradually weakens, allowing him to breathe normally again. Rory continues the ritual, declaring that the immortal must become one by casting aside the emptiness of eternity. She prepares another cup and carefully carries it toward the dragon. Valdrova slowly reaches out from behind the door. But there is one small problem. Her enormous dragon claws cannot properly hold the tiny cup. It slips from her grasp and crashes onto the floor. Rory quietly sighs. Then she calmly announces that they will have to start the ceremony again. Sometime later, the same ritual is repeated. Ferda drinks another cup, then another, and another. At this point, he has completely lost count. Every time Valdrova reaches through the doorway to accept her ceremonial wine, her massive claws fail to hold the cup, forcing the entire ceremony to restart. Eventually, Ruri reaches her limit. She asks Ferda to excuse her for a moment before storming through the door. The instant she enters the room, her calm personality completely disappears. She angrily asks her master what she thinks she is doing. After all, Valdrova was the one who threw a tantrum and insisted on marrying a mortal. Ruri accepted her master's decision and prepared everything for the engagement, yet now Valdrova is hiding inside while her fiancé sits outside waiting. She demands that her master stop hiding and proudly welcome Ferda. Then she delivers one final warning. If Valdrova drops the engagement wine one more time, Ruri will not let it slide. Unfortunately for her, Ferda has been standing right outside the entire time. He hears every word. The furious shouting coming from inside leaves him completely frozen. A few moments later, Ruri calmly walks back outside as though nothing happened. She casually asks Ferda if he heard anything. Still trying to process what just happened, Ferda admits that he did. In fact, he says her roar sounded almost as powerful as a dragon's breath. Ruri simply nods. She explains that losing her temper was necessary if they wanted the ceremony to continue. Then she reveals something Ferda never expected. Her master is afraid of humans. Valdrova has always been reluctant to interact with humans, which is why she almost never leaves her territory unless she is hunting monsters. Ferda is stunned. The terrifying red dragon everyone fears actually has a weakness. She is afraid of people. But that creates an even bigger problem. How are they supposed to finish the engagement ceremony if the bride refuses to come outside? Before Ferda can think of an answer, the enormous entrance slowly creaks open. For the first time, Archduchess Valdrova steps outside. She remains completely silent before quietly taking her seat. Ferda is speechless. He had heard that dragons could take breathtakingly beautiful human forms, but seeing Valdrova like this makes her look less like a bride and more like a creature marching onto a battlefield. Everyone settles back into position. Ruri calmly resumes the ceremony as though nothing unusual happened. The ancient vows are repeated, speaking of mortals overcoming fear and immortals casting aside the emptiness of endless time. The ceremonial wine is placed before both Ferda and Valdrova. This time, the dragon carefully moves part of the armor covering her face so she can drink. The moment Ferda catches a glimpse of what lies beneath the armor, he completely freezes. His mind goes blank. For some reason, the instinctive fear he normally feels around her has disappeared. After everything she went through just to stand here with an ordinary human, Ferda realizes the terrifying dragon he imagined is not what he sees now. The moment leaves him completely speechless. Ruri continues the ceremony and announces that it is finally time for the couple to read the vows they personally wrote for each other. Ferda looks down at the paper in his hands. For a brief moment, he hesitates. After returning to the past, the words he originally prepared no longer carry the same meaning. Still, he takes a breath and begins. Ferda tells Valdrova that although she may not know him well, he knows her. He knows that she once gave him her heart, and through that heart he came to understand everything she had endured. He remembers watching her get betrayed and falsely accused over and over again. Yet despite everything humans did to her, she continued carrying out her duties with dignity. She even continued embracing people who hated her without reason. Most importantly, she never abandoned the things she truly wanted to protect. Because of that, Ferda makes his vow. Just as Valdrova once gave him her heart, this time he will give his heart to her, his sovereign, his beloved, his everything. After a brief pause, Ferda smiles gently. Then he adds something that was never written on the paper. He tells her that it is truly an honor to become engaged to such a beautiful woman. Ruri's expression remains surprisingly calm. She simply nods and announces that it is now time to hear the bride's vows. But before she can finish speaking, Valdrova suddenly stands. Without saying a single word, she immediately turns around and hurries back through the door. Ferda and Ruri are left completely stunned. For several seconds, nobody says anything. Then, to Ferda's surprise, Ruri smiles warmly. She declares that the engagement ceremony is complete. From behind the closed door, Valdrova's embarrassed voice finally responds. She apologizes and asks if it would be all right for her to remain secluded for about 3 days. Ruri immediately walks into the room with an enormous smile. She praises her master for delivering such a devastating blow to that arrogant man. According to Ruri, Valdrova had displayed the noble elegance of a true dragon. She even jokes that her master must have planned the entire thing from the beginning, using a brilliant hit-and-run strategy that completely caught everyone off guard. Ruri continues teasing her, amused that Valdrova managed to maintain control of the situation so perfectly, but the truth is very different. Despite wanting this engagement more than anyone, Valdrova is not calmly celebrating. She is completely red with embarrassment. After hearing Ferda's heartfelt confession, the normally dignified Grand Duchess is simply too shy to face him. Behind the closed door, Valdrova quietly admits that she had actually prepared vows of her own. She wanted to recite them and personally welcome Ferda as her future husband. Ruri is confused. If Valdrova had prepared everything, then why did she run away without saying a single word? Vald lowers her eyes and admits the truth. She simply could not bring herself to look Ferda in the eyes while saying those words. His sharp gaze felt as though it could see straight through every thought she had, while his calm and gentle voice made it even harder for her to remain composed. The moment she looked at him, her mind went completely blank, and every word she had prepared disappeared. Ruri quietly sighs. She then reminds her master that, despite how happy this day should be, Valdrova needs to prepare herself for disappointment. Vald looks at her in confusion. Disappointment. Ruri carefully explains that Ferda is now officially her fiancé and will soon be responsible for governing the Eastern Territory as the Grand Duchess's representative. But authority can change people. She remembers how the Third Imperial Prince once changed after gaining influence, and warns that Ferda could potentially follow the same path. Ruri apologizes for bringing up such painful memories from the past, but insists that this is the most honest advice she can give. Vald listens quietly. She understands Ruri's concern. After all, humans are mortal and will eventually disappear. Perhaps, she thinks, it would be better to bury these strange feelings before they become something painful. Her voice remains calm, but a faint sadness lingers beneath her words, as though she is trying to convince herself more than anyone else. Meanwhile, the engagement ceremony finally comes to an end. Later, Ferda lies alone in his room, staring at the ceiling while replaying everything that happened. He still cannot believe it. He really became engaged to the legendary Valdrova. In his previous life, hatred and rage consumed him so completely that there had been no room for any other emotion. This time, everything is different. Ever since seeing Valdrova's true form and experiencing the emotions she awakened inside him, he cannot stop thinking about her. Even his red circle has begun behaving differently. Ferda knows a red circle that runs wild can eventually destroy its own caster. Yet if that violent flow can be controlled, its power could become the key to incredibly rapid growth. Fortunately, Ferda already reached the pinnacle of magic in his previous life. Returning to that level is no longer an impossible dream. A magic circle requires two things to evolve: mental strength and mana. As a first circle mage, Ferda's current mana reserves are still limited, but his mental strength once reached the level of an archmage. That experience gives him an enormous advantage. With complete confidence, Ferda focuses on the raging mana flowing through his body. This time, he refuses to waste even a single drop. He carefully rotates the unstable energy, layering one stream over another until the violent mana begins forming a precise structure. Then, it happens. His second circle takes shape. Ferda smiles. Another step toward Valdrova. 3 days later, Ruri enters his room and immediately freezes. She cannot believe what she is seeing. Ferda has already reached the second circle, in only 3 days. She asks whether red circle mages normally advance this quickly. Ferda calmly tells her that it depends on the individual, but deep down he knows there is much more to it. The red circle has a dangerous side effect. Every time a new circle is created, the mage needs an even stronger emotional stimulus to fuel the next stage. Eventually, the strongest emotion repeatedly experienced by the circle becomes permanently attached to the caster's personality. In Ferda's previous life, that emotion was hatred. Even after completing his revenge, he could not stop. He kept searching for new reasons to hate people. That endless cycle eventually consumed him. Remembering those painful experiences only strengthens his determination to avoid repeating them. Soon afterward, Ruri guides Ferda through the fortress and stops before a spacious office. She tells him that this will be his workplace from now on. As the Grand Duke's regent, Ferda will be responsible for governing the territory while Valdrova handles the external threats. When he steps inside, Ferda immediately notices something unexpected. Although this is a dragon's fortress, everything in the room has clearly been prepared with a human fiancé in mind. The thoughtful arrangements make him realize how much effort Valdrova must have put into making him comfortable. Ferda straightens his posture. Then he announces that he will begin his first official duty as the Grand Duke's regent. His first priority is obvious. The Eastern Territory has been practically abandoned by its ruler. But after Ferda publicly displayed Thessalos's head and exposed his crimes, the other regional lords have become extremely cautious around him. With Rory's support, dealing with them should be much easier. His first move is to send letters to every lord he previously met. Rory watches as Ferda finishes writing and asks what he intends to say in his first official message as regent. Ferda keeps it simple. He tells them that they will be working together from now on. As the Grand Duke's regent, he will oversee the internal affairs of the territory. Anyone who disagrees with his decision does not need to reply. He respects every one of them. The letters are quickly delivered throughout the territory. With the nobles temporarily dealt with, Ferda turns his attention toward a much larger threat: the monsters. Their presence alone is enough to corrupt fertile farmland, while their attacks continue taking innocent lives. Valdrova spends most of her time dealing with the terrifying giant monsters that threaten the region. But even she has limits. She cannot personally eliminate every lesser monster spread across such a massive territory. Ferda decides that his next priority is recruiting capable people. Rory asks if he already has anyone in mind. Ferda silently hands her a document filled with names. After studying the list, they leave the castle together to find their first candidate. Rory finds the choice strange. Their search eventually brings them to Eska, the famous city of scholars. Ferda explains that it is perfectly normal she has never heard of him. His talent has not yet been recognized by the world. Rory remains skeptical. Putting an unknown person in charge of important matters could be dangerous. She asks whether Ferda simply wrote the list on a whim. He calmly denies it. The list may look ordinary, but it took him a very long time to gather all the information. Because Ferda remembers these people from his previous life. Back then, however, this list had a very different purpose. It was his hit list. Ferda had investigated each person carefully, studying their accomplishments and weaknesses so he could find more reasons to hate them and eventually take revenge. At that time, his entire life revolved around hatred. Looking back now, he realizes how much of that hatred was nothing more than paranoia. Those memories remind him of the person he used to be and strengthen his determination to never become that man again. Suddenly, a cheerful shopkeeper calls out to them. He asks whether the young noble and lovely lady would like some snacks. Ferda approaches the stall and asks whether many academy graduates visit the shop. The shopkeeper proudly confirms that they do. Ferda then asks if he knows a particular scholar, the man everyone calls the Messy Scholar. Hearing the name Messy Scholar, Rory said, if he plans to make the castle messy. The shopkeeper laughs at the strange nickname and says it is certainly well known. Unfortunately, he is too busy running his stall every day to remember every customer's face, so he cannot provide much help. Ferda notices that Rory has been staring at the food the entire time. The shopkeeper tells him it is 5 coppers for 3 skewers. He buys the skewers and hands them to her. He remarks that he never expected her to enjoy food like this. She claims she only accepted them as payment for the information, but her expression makes it obvious that she genuinely wanted them. As they continue through the city, Ferda secretly glances at her. He once thought Rory's emotions had become as numb as his own. Yet now he can see her making such innocent expressions over something as simple as food. Rory notices him staring. Misunderstanding his intentions, she becomes slightly flustered and asks him, "Would you care for one?" They simply continue searching for their mysterious scholar. Then, as they pass a nearby building, a loud voice suddenly echoes from inside. Someone desperately shouts that they are about to miss the right moment. The man sounds close to tears as he cries out about his research being blown away. At Veritas Academy, the 525th graduation ceremony marks the end of another academic year. Among the graduates is Bernal Marquet, a scholar famous for being the Academy's most outstanding freshman and somehow its most disappointing graduate. The moment Bernal receives his diploma, several people surround him to congratulate him. Unfortunately, they are not there to celebrate. They are there to collect their money. Bernal has spent years borrowing from loan sharks to fund his research, leaving him buried beneath an enormous mountain of debt. The lenders have repeatedly visited his home demanding payment, but Bernal always begged them for more time. Now that he has finally graduated, they have run out of patience. Before they can demand payment again, one of the men notices an awful smell. Nearby lies the rotting corpse of a monstrous creature. Bernal nervously explains that it is not an ordinary animal. It is a monster, and its corpse is actually part of his research. His goal is to transform useless monster corpses into mana stones and alternative energy sources. If he succeeds, the technology could revolutionize the entire continent. Unfortunately, the loan shark boss does not care about changing the world. He only wants to know one thing. Can the research make money right now? Burnell reluctantly admits that it probably cannot. Too many obstacles remain before his research becomes practical. The boss immediately mocks him. He reminds Burnell that being a brilliant researcher means nothing if he cannot even repay his debts. Instead of continuing with his current project, the boss orders him to develop weapons. Weapon development is profitable, and with Burnell's reputation as the Academy's former top freshman, the loan sharks believe he should have no trouble creating something valuable. The boss pulls out a dagger. Burnell immediately panics and desperately tries to explain that he has another research proposal. The dagger suddenly flies into the ground between his legs. Burnell nearly loses his mind from fear. The boss warns him that he has already been patient for long enough. Someone drowning in debt does not get to be picky about how they repay it. But Burnell refuses. He absolutely cannot bring himself to develop weapons. That final refusal pushes the boss over the edge. He kicks Burnell in the head and knocks him to the ground. The loan sharks surround him and begin beating him mercilessly. Burnell desperately begs them not to hit his head, terrified that he might actually die before ever completing his research. Then, just when things seem hopeless, a calm voice interrupts the beating. Someone orders the loan sharks to stop. The newcomer casually remarks that he seems to have arrived at exactly the right place. It is Ferda. He explains that he also has business with Burnell. The loan shark boss assumes Ferda is simply some wealthy noble from another town and asks whether Burnell borrowed money from him too. Ferda calmly says no. The boss tells him to wait his turn because he plans to beat Burnell until he can barely speak. Ferda points out that this creates a problem. He does not need Burnell's mouth. He needs Burnell's brain. The injured scholar is exactly what Ferda came here to obtain, so Ferda offers to pay off Burnell's entire debt himself. The boss reveals that after years of accumulated interest, Burnell now owes 72 gold coins. He doubts Ferda can actually afford such an enormous amount. Rory simply places a heavy pouch of gold onto the table. There is more than enough. The loan sharks stare at the money in disbelief. The boss happily declares Burnell's debt completely settled. But just as he reaches for the gold, Rory suddenly grabs his hand. Ferda calmly reminds him that their business is not finished. The boss demands to know what he means. Ferda explains that he clearly said he wanted Burnell's brain. Looking at the scholar's battered condition, Ferda realizes the loan sharks may have damaged the merchandise. Therefore, they owe him compensation. The boss is completely stunned. He reminds Ferda that Burnell is a person, not merchandise. He desperately begs Rory to release his hand. Only then does he realize just how terrifying her strength is. Rory eventually lets go, leaving the boss clutching his wrist in pain. Ferda tells Rory that he is counting on her. She calmly responds that it looks like she will not even need to do much. Then, her mana erupts. An overwhelming pressure instantly fills the area. The loan sharks freeze in terror, unable to move beneath Rory's presence. Ferda gives them two choices. They can compensate him for the damage they caused to Burnell, or they can receive the exact same beating they inflicted on him. Remembering the loan shark's own words about not being able to afford losing even a single coin, Ferda confidently assumes they will choose the second option. So that settles it. They are getting beaten. Rory steps forward. The instant the loan shark boss looks at her, fear completely takes over. She proceeds to defeat the loan sharks one after another. Their screams echo through the area as Rory effortlessly overwhelms every one of them. Eventually, the battered group flees. Once they are gone, Burnell looks toward Ferda and Rory with genuine gratitude. He has no idea how he could ever repay them for saving his life. Then he introduces himself properly, Burnell Mark. The scholar known throughout the academy as the Messy Scholar, he politely asks Ferda's name. Ferda introduces himself as Ferdavald Drova. The moment Burnell hears that name, his expression changes completely. He realizes that Ferda is the husband of the Grand Duchess and apologizes for failing to recognize him. Ferda assures him that there is no need to apologize. Burnell simply had no way of knowing about the recent developments. Then Ferda reveals the real reason he came. He has heard about Burnell's research. The scholar is speechless. For perhaps the first time in his life, someone is genuinely interested in his work rather than the money it can make. Ferda explains that he already knows Burnell is researching ways to make practical use of monster corpses, and the Far East is the perfect place for that research. The region is overflowing with monsters, meaning Burnell would have access to an almost endless supply of materials. Ferda then offers him something Burnell never expected. He invites him to Castle Valdrova. His research will receive complete support, no restrictions. Burnell's face lights up with pure excitement. He can barely contain his happiness. Watching him celebrate, Rory quietly leans toward Ferda and wonders whether the scholar is actually sane. Then Ferda reveals one condition. In exchange for all that support, Burnell must use his research to develop weapons. The happiness immediately disappears from Burnell's face. He refuses. Weapons exist to take lives and destroy peace. Above everything else, Burnell wants the world to remain peaceful. Ferda understands his desire. But then he explains the reality of the Far East. The monsters Burnell is studying are not harmless creatures. Even a single monster can slaughter countless innocent people. And every 3 days, Valdrova personally goes to the front lines to fight the most terrifying giant monsters gathering there. Those creatures possess enough power to wipe out an entire city like Eskla within moments. Every time Valdrova enters battle, she risks her own life to protect everyone else. Meanwhile, ordinary people continue living peaceful lives without even realizing why they are safe. Their safety exists because the Grand Duchess keeps sacrificing herself on the battlefield. That is why Ferda needs Burnell. Humanity needs stronger weapons. Not for conquest, not for greed, but to reduce the burden placed on Valdrova and give her a better chance of protecting the people she loves. Ferda wants the scholar everyone mocked and underestimated to become the chief researcher of Castle Valdrova. After explaining everything, he hands Burnell an official appointment letter. Burnell stands completely still. For years, everyone treated his research like a useless dream. Now someone has given him the resources to turn that dream into reality. Yet one conflict remains. Burnell still struggles with the idea of using his knowledge to create weapons, but Ferda already knows what Burnell will eventually become. He will become a man willing to wage war, not for destruction, but to protect peace. After leaving Burnell's house, Ferda and Rory begin their journey back to the palace by carriage. They still have not received a definite answer from Burnell, but Ferda is not worried. The scholar simply needs time to think, and Ferda trusts that he will contact them once he makes his decision. Meanwhile, Ferda notices that Rory has developed quite a taste for human snacks. She continues happily munching on a honey-glazed fruit stick, casually explaining that she is only eating because the journey is long and she needs to satisfy her hunger. Their next recruitment target, however, is far more difficult to find. They are searching for a member of the Red-Eyed tribe. This mysterious race possesses eyes capable of dispelling magic circles, making them the natural enemies of wizards. Because of that terrifying ability, the Red-Eyed tribe was relentlessly persecuted until everyone eventually believed they had gone extinct. But according to Ferda's information, at least one member survived. Rory is surprised that an entire bloodline thought to be erased from existence could still exist. Someone with that ability would be an incredibly valuable asset. The problem is finding them. Anyone who survived such persecution would have every reason to hide. Ferda checks whether they still have enough money to continue their search. Rory assures him that their funds are more than sufficient. They have enough gold to fill an entire cart. Satisfied, Ferda decides their next destination will be Halim. The moment Rory hears the name, she freezes. Her face immediately turns pale. Halim is infamous for corruption, gambling, and entertainment. Ferda calmly confirms that they are heading there because their next candidate happens to be a gambler. Not long afterward, the two arrive at an exclusive casino. At the bottom of a grand staircase, wealthy guests dressed in elegant evening clothes sit around green gambling tables while servants in black and white uniforms attend to them. This is clearly a private gambling party reserved for the elite. At one table, a handsome man lounges among several women while enormous piles of gold poker coins cover the table. Then Ferda and Rory enter. They are carrying an enormous box filled with even more gold. The sheer amount immediately attracts everyone's attention. The gamblers stare in disbelief, wondering whether Ferda has brought enough money to wager an entire fortune. Some even realize the value of the gold is nearly equivalent to the budget of an entire territory. Ferda and Rory carry the box directly toward the wealthy man. Rory quietly points out that the man does not have red eyes. Ferda assures her that they have found the right person. The man laughs and introduces himself as Jed Swallow. He welcomes Ferda to the game and happily invites him to play. This carefree gambler is exactly the person Ferda came looking for. Ferda sits down. The cards are dealt. Eventually, Ferda wins the round. Jed cheerfully congratulates him, but his girlfriend immediately asks why he did not take the game seriously. Jed laughs it off, joking that luck simply was not on his side. Ferda watches him carefully. Something about Jed does not add up. It quickly becomes obvious that gambling is not actually what interests him. His attention is focused entirely on the noble woman sitting beside him. Ferda recognizes several remarkable qualities in the man. Jed is incredibly eloquent, handsome, and possesses exceptional sleight of hand. He knows exactly how to charm wealthy nobles. But Ferda also understands his personality. The moment Jed senses danger, he will disappear like a rabbit. So Ferda decides to eliminate that escape route before Jed gets the chance to run. The two begin another round. Jed jokes that Ferda is finally starting to understand the game. Ferda admits that he has enjoyed playing with him, but he makes one thing clear: there will not be a next time. He does not want the woman standing behind him to start thinking he is some kind of gambler. Jed laughs and says, "Everyone always uses that excuse." Then he finally asks why Ferda came to the casino in the first place. Ferda gives him a cold answer. He is looking for Amelia. The atmosphere at the table changes instantly. Jed immediately understands Ferda's true intentions. Anger begins building inside him, but he keeps a smile on his face and asks whether Ferda is planning something drastic. Before he can finish, Ferda makes his move. He goes all in. His entire fortune is pushed into the pot. The casino erupts in whispers. Everyone is stunned that the newcomer is willing to risk such an enormous amount of money against Jed. Jed's smile remains in place. He knows he absolutely has to win. He accepts the challenge. Ferda reveals his hand. A straight flush. Rory is completely stunned, but despite the incredible hand, Jed somehow wins the round. The moment the game ends, Jed's playful expression disappears. His eyes turn red. He asks Ferda and Rory to accompany him somewhere private because they clearly have a lot to discuss. The three move to a nearby restaurant. As Jed pours himself a drink, his expression becomes increasingly serious. He demands to know how Ferda knows about Amelia. He also asks whether Ferda is connected to the people hunting his family. Ferda immediately notices something important. The brown eyes Jed displayed inside the casino were fake. His true red eyes confirm his identity as a member of the red-eyed tribe. Ferda calmly tells him that he has nothing to do with those people. Then he begins exposing the truth about Jed himself. To the nobles, Jed is nothing more than a charming gambler and an entertaining plaything. But Ferda knows that is only an act. His sleight of hand is so extraordinary that he could potentially bankrupt the entire casino. Ferda points out that Jed deliberately lowered himself into the role of a cheap entertainer for nobles. There is a reason for it. He is trying to build connections within high society. He is searching for his younger sister, Amelia. The red-eyed siblings have suffered terribly simply because of their bloodline. Wizards wanted the red-eyed tribe eliminated, while anti-wizard factions wanted to exploit their unique abilities. Caught between both sides, Jed lost his sister. Since then, he has hidden his true identity and infiltrated high society, hoping to find someone powerful enough to help him. But the nobles never saw him as anything more than entertainment. Ferda tells him the truth. No matter how much money Jed collects, those nobles will never give him what he truly needs. Jed lowers his head and wonders what he is supposed to do. He still has not found Amelia, and now Ferda knows his secret. Then, Ferda offers him another option. He introduces himself properly as Ferda Valdrova, the future husband of the Grand Duchess, and he offers Jed a position as his attendant. Jed is stunned. A noble connected to Valdrova is offering a position to a hidden member of the red-eyed tribe. Ferda confirms that he is completely serious. Rory hands over the official appointment letter. If Jed does not believe him, he can inspect the document himself. The position would give Jed access to high society, exactly where he needs to be if he wants to continue searching for Amelia. Jed is tempted. But he still does not completely trust Ferda, so he establishes his own conditions. First, he wants a proper salary. He still needs money. Second, if Ferda ever develops ulterior motives regarding his red-eyed abilities, Jed will immediately leave. Ferda accepts both conditions. But he adds one of his own. Their contract will only remain active until Jed finds his sister. Once Amelia is found, Jed will be completely free to choose whether he wants to remain or leave. That answer shocks him. Jed expected a noble to try to control him after discovering his true identity. Instead, Ferda is willingly giving him a way out. Ferda explains that he has no interest in buying or selling humans. Once the contract ends, Jed will be free. Jed cannot believe it. He points out that Ferda is a wizard and asks whether he is not afraid of allowing a member of the red-eyed tribe to walk openly beside him. After all, red-eyed people are supposed to be the natural enemies of wizards. Ferda simply dismisses the concern. In his opinion, a wizard who fears the red-eyed tribe simply because their magic cannot affect them is a failure as a wizard. He also makes it clear that he will never force Jed to stay. Deep down, Ferda already knows that even if he tried, catching Jed would probably be impossible. In the future, Jed will become a legendary thief capable of escaping even the most notorious prisons. Hearing all this, Jed takes another drink and smiles. Ferda is definitely an unusual noble. He decides to give the position a chance. Jed Swallow becomes Ferda's attendant. But Ferda immediately reveals his first assignment. He wants Jed to seduce a woman and bring her back. Jed nearly spits out his beer. He cannot believe that this is his first mission. Ferda remains completely calm. With Jed's skills, convincing one woman should not be difficult. All he has to do is bring back a woman who lives alone. And with that strange mission established, the scene shifts. Far away from the lively casino, a dark forest stretches beneath a purple night sky. Several blackbirds fly over a small, isolated wooden house hidden deep among the trees. Whatever Ferda wants Jed to retrieve, it is waiting inside that house.